Hey guys!
Hey guys!
We're back with another WESTWORLD review, this time reviewing WESTWORLD Season 1, Episode 5, titled Contrapasso. If you haven't seen it yet and you want to avoid any spoilers, skip this video and come back later, because everything we say from this point forward is going to be a spoiler. Okay, first off, the title of this episode was Contrapasso, and that comes from Dante's Inferno, and it translates roughly to punishment that fits the crime. So there were a ton of bombshells in this episode.
Yeah.
This is an episode that you could really almost do like a full hour discussion on. There was so much in this episode, and if you weren't paying attention, you could easily have missed it. So we're going to talk about the bits that really stood out to us as especially important. The main one being that Arnold's mission, which he disclosed to Dolores, is to destroy WESTWORLD.
Yes.
Oh man!
And there's a little theory floating around there, and one that we picked up on and we're thinking ourselves, and it was nice to have it confirmed by other fans,
or at least acknowledged.
Or acknowledged,
like,
yeah, not
we're
confirmed.
not being
Acknowledged,
crazy.
yeah,
and
we're not
overthinking.
crazy.
Yeah.
Other people think this too. Is that Arnold didn't actually die, and instead has uploaded himself into a host, or bits of himself into multiple hosts.
Yes.
We definitely think that Arnold, part of Arnold at least, is in Dolores.
Yeah, because she talks to him in her mind.
Yeah.
And so unless he is alive and somehow talking to her, through remotely, then he has definitely uploaded his consciousness to her. But he could still be alive. Because the woodcutter, the reason he was wandering out alone is because he was sending signals to someone outside the park. He could have been sending it to Arnold.
Yeah.
We really don't know. There's just so much going on. And oh my gosh, WESTWORLD, every video, WESTWORLD is the best show on television right now. And this episode was just another example of it.
Yeah. Now, another possibility for the woodcutter is the lady that's really high up. I cannot remember her name. She was absent in this episode, but when Bernard and Elsie were examining the woodcutter, she came in and shut it down. Mm-hmm. And then the woodcutter almost immediately goes to be incinerated. Is she spying on them using that technology, using that thingamabobber that was in his arm?
Yeah, the transmitter.
The transmitter, the laser
arm.
transmitter, yeah. That was kind of suspicious. But what's also a little weird is that in Dolores's hallucinations with herself, which I kind of think might be Arnold, like if there's part of Arnold in her, she sees it as herself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But she had a hallucination of having one of those in her arm.
Or something in her arm.
Yeah, like she had something.
Yeah,
and that was a little, it seemed very similar. So that kind of adds another layer of confusion to who might be getting this, the corporate espionage.
Yeah. Also, Dolores is still evolving, and she evolved even more in this episode. They had a shootout with the Confederate...
the Confederates?
Yeah, the Confederati or Confederados or whatever the heck they were called. The Confederate soldiers who did not surrender, they had a shootout with those, and William... he got taken out pretty fast, and she's just like, pow, 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 pow. And I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Dolores is awesome.
And she delivered the one line in the entire show that just stuck with me, where, paraphrasing here, she says, we're here to write our own stories. Well, I thought of a story where I was no longer a damsel. Or a damsel in distress. It was something along that lines. She's like, I thought of a story where I was not the damsel in distress, and that's how she was able to do that, and that was amazing. Oh my gosh.
And I like how she's completely out of her own loop now.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. Like the wardrobe change, I think, was really important.
Yeah.
I think it really kind of signified that she is not the Dolores that we saw in episode 1 in any way anymore.
Yeah.
Now, what's going to happen if she dies? If she dies and goes to the Texas... Well, and she can still get pulled in for maintenance, which we saw because of her interactions with Ford in this episode.
Yes.
Assuming if this is told in a linear way, which it very well might not be. We'll talk about that here in a second. But it seemed like Ford pulled her out to talk to her and then put her back in sometime during the night so she could, finish hanging out with William and Logan, doing what they're doing. But if it's not told in a linear way, he could have talked to her at a completely different time.
Our cat's being so bad.
She's so bad. I really hope that made sense. I feel like Westworld's the kind of show that if you're talking about it to somebody who hasn't really seen it before, they're gonna think you're nuts and like, dude, you're talking gibberish right now.
Yeah.
But hopefully you were able to keep up with what I was saying there. Now, speaking about the non-linear theory, the non-linear story theory.
Yes, so there's a prevalent fan theory out there that William is the Man in Black and that these two stories take place 30 years apart.
Right.
And there
was a clue in this episode that could be true.
Yeah, there are like things that happen that make it seem maybe possible, and then there's stuff that happens that where you're like, oh no, it doesn't really seem possible. But the thing that kind of the fan theory is held onto from this episode is Lawrence gets his throat cut by the Man in Black, and then immediately shows up in William's timeline as Elazo.
Yes. So did they repair him and put him back out as a different character that fast? Or do they just have a limited number of models that they use for the host? This could have been just a different host with the same face. We don't really know. But it is kind of a clue that this might not be a completely linear story.
Yeah.
I hope it is, though, because I really want the Man in Black and Dolores to reach the center of the maze at the same time. I want to see that final confrontation between those two.
Yeah, that's new and improved Dolores.
Yeah, that's what I really feel like this is building toward. But if William is a younger version of the Man in Black, and this other, the older Man in Black has just been tormenting her ever since, oh my gosh, that would just crush me, I think.
Yeah, it would ruin William for us.
Yeah, I like William.
Yeah.
That actor, who Jesse Simpson, I think is his name. Ordinarily, he plays kind of douchey characters. This is the first time he's ever played a character that I've seen that I'm actually rooting for. So I don't want him to be the Man in Black.
So far, in Westworld, it doesn't seem like they would have multiple versions of the same model. It just seems to go against everything that they've been trying to do.
It would break the immersion.
Yeah, it would break the immersion. So I don't think Lawrence is a different, it's just a different version of the same model when he's Elazo. And they've kind of implied that the characters stay on the same story loop for a while before moving to another one. So that does seem to suggest that there is a 30-year time difference. But one thing in this episode kind of goes to prove the opposite, where the Man in Black talks about how the host he'd cut them open once and they used to have little bits and pieces inside of them, and now they were made more human. In the timeline with William and Dolores, when they shoot them, they're bleeding. It's not robotic. So this is, if William is the Man in Black, this would be prior to him cutting open one of the hosts. So it kind of, I mean, not quite, I mean, you could still do a workaround of that, but it kind of disproves that there's a 30-year time difference and William is in fact the Man in Black, because the hosts do seem like they are just as human in that storyline as they are in the Man in Black storyline.
Yeah. So, maybe Lawrence and Elazo are supposed to be brothers in this story. Told you, there's so much stuff to talk about in this particular episode.
We're not even done yet.
No, I also want to talk about Maeve in this video. Maeve, I feel like, is she getting killed in Westworld on purpose just to be able to go out and experience the technicians more and learn more about them? I feel like maybe she might be.
Yeah.
Especially when Felix is like, she's back again this soon?
Yeah, it feels like she's been observing them, especially when at the end she sits up and says, we need to have a chat. It's like she's been observing them and she noticed that Felix was doing something he wasn't supposed to, and once he got the bird alive, then she, allows him to become aware that she's been aware this whole time and wants to chat with him. Like, was she waiting for him to reach that level and be able to actually program the bird before talking to him?
Because it does seem like she wants him to reprogram her or something. That's from the, I think that was in the I don't know where I got that from.
Promo.
I might have got it from the promo,
from the promo.
yeah. So, I love Felix as a character. We're just now kind of getting to know Felix, and he is just nerdy and kind of socially awkward and meek, and I really like that character. I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for Maeve, and I really kind of hope that they become like a dynamic duo.
Now, speaking of Felix, I had like this moment where I thought for sure that the technicians, the butchers, were hosts as well, because Sylvester kind of makes fun of Felix for tinkering with the birds, saying, "I thought they would have weeded that personality out in the embryo," and I was like, "Oh, are they hosts?" And like maybe some of them are, some of them aren't. It just kind of messed with my mind a little bit. The other theory is, we have heard Ford talk about how humans have reached the capacity of evolution, that they're not evolving anymore. So the other theory is that there is some form of genetic control outside in the real world, and that perhaps there is a caste system and certain things are bred out of the lower caste so that they don't try to jump into the next caste.
There is so much in this episode that we could talk about, but we can't. We don't want to take up too much of your time. So, if you have anything to add, please talk to us down in the comments.
Yes.
We would love to talk to you about this episode because
we have so much more.
Crap,
so much more.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please let us know by dropping a like on it and subscribe for more reviews.
And thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.